What's up everyone, OJ here, welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be talking about Bayonetta 3 because a bunch of new previews, gameplay trailers, and more have came out for the game, and I wanted to talk about it because this looks like a surefire, must-play, game of the year contender based off of everything that we're seeing here. But before we get into that, please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, and click that notification bell to get my videos first. I also wanted to get into real quick, guys, I do have a Bayonetta 3 giveaway going down on my Twitter page. Check out the link in the description. So if you're someone new, if you're watching this for the first time, make sure you subscribe to the channel, check out the link in the description, and you could win a copy of Bayonetta 3 digitally on the Nintendo Switch. Now, starting off first, we're going to talk about, of course, the Bayonetta 3 new gameplay trailer. Nintendo released this trailer talking about all of these Bayonettas, and what surprised me the most about this game is how crisp it looks from when they first showed it off to this point right now. Like, yes, the graphics aren't going to be super crazy, you know, God of War, any of the newest games that we see on stronger hardware, but for the Nintendo Switch, what this game is doing and keeping up some of the other things that are going on, it's actually really impressive and an upgrade over Bayonetta 2. It's definitely more complex, has more details, has more finer lines and just shiny parts to it. It just looks great overall, and I'm very excited to kind of see more of the geometry and the levels and the locations and the areas. So the presentation is on point. Now, when it comes to story and also I would say like writing, this is where Bayonetta 3 I think takes it to the next level. In Bayonetta 1 and Bayonetta 2, that was some of the weak parts with the game. The gameplay was always phenomenal, but the story necessarily wasn't the best written or just the best overall. But I think that with Bayonetta 3, there actually seems to be a very compelling plot, very compelling writing, and very just good overall. An improvement to quality with the third one. I guess they say third time's a charm. Heck, even JP Kelms, who used to work at Platinum Games on the Bayonetta series, says that the writing is much better. So I'm definitely loving what they're doing here, and the story setup with these different Bayonettas and some of them dying and some of them being alive and some of them being in different dimensions or different areas. I think that it's going to set up a really interesting premise and a really interesting story that's going to take you through all sorts of the same twists and turns that previous Bayonetta games have taken you, but also with more intrigue as you find out what's going on with all these different Bayonettas, how it happened, and how it ties up everything when it comes to the Bayonetta storyline. So I'm very excited about that. Now let's get into the meat and potatoes of the game, and that is the combat, and that's where Bayonetta 3 shines just brighter than the previous games based on the previews and based on my own eye test, because I am a Bayonetta connoisseur. I know Bayonetta in and out. I've gotten all the achievements and all the stuff that you can do in every single Bayonetta game, so I just know how the game plays and works. And I think that the change from having weapons on your hands and your feet to now having just different weapons that you can do with your demons attacking in between is a very interesting change, but I think that it's going to make a very approachable change for new people jumping into the series, so they're not going to be as confused with, okay, I'm going to put some swords on my feet or some bazookas in my hand or some this over there or whips there and that. I mean, I just think that it creates a cleaner interface for you to fight, and also more interesting with demons popping out of nowhere and completing combos and actually aiding you in your combat a lot more than just torture attacks or certain set pieces within Bayonetta 1 and Bayonetta 2. So very good on that end. That was one of the things that was stressed in a lot of the previews of the game for Bayonetta 3, that the combat has been overhauled with some really cool things, and adding into the mix with Viola, her gameplay is very fun as well. There's been some concern over if her gameplay was going to be fun because she can't do as many things as Bayonetta, but it seems like based off the previews, everyone is really liking what Viola is kind of doing in the game, and a lot of people kind of had the same thought process that I had when I saw her and her combat and saying, wait a minute, is this just like the recycled Scalebound guy, but they kind of did it in a whole different way? It might have been based on how she fights and how she has her Cheshire, that when you throw out your sword, the Cheshire starts attacking, then you can just start punching on your own. So you have essentially a big old huge demon fighting alongside you with yourself, which was the premise for Scalebound on the original Xbox One. So I'm loving that this game is absorbing some of those ideas, because I was actually really excited for Scalebound. One of the reasons why I got an Xbox One in the first place was for Scalebound when I first saw it. So the fact that Bayonetta 3 is taking some of those ideas and it can somewhat live on in this game is pretty cool, I will say that. Now let's talk more about the gameplay in the game, because this is where people really want to know, does it really one-up Bayonetta 1 and Bayonetta 2? And I think that based off the previews, I think that that is definitely a yes. I think that the thing that I liked the most about what was said in the previews was some of the other elements added into the gameplay. So along with the standard combat section that you're going to have and other things that you're going through with combat and fighting with Viola or Bayonetta and changing different weapons and doing all that, there's other platforming sections, there's other exploration sections that are far more expanded than what we previously saw. Now, a long time ago, I remember making a video talking about how Bayonetta 3 is going to have some really game-changing type of things that they do in this game that they really haven't done too much in previous games. And I think that that's where this comes into play, with the extra parts of exploration and the extra parts of what you're doing there. Now, in previous games, there were parts of exploration where you can go off and find different areas to fight and get different verses so you can have a better score overall. So that was always a thing. But I think now in this game, more so than ever, especially from what they've showed us, because you can transform into the actual demons and be able to access other areas outside of just the regular Bayonetta, you know, moving or Viola moving. I think that that is really adding another layer to the gameplay that we really haven't seen before, and probably was more of a challenge for them to think of ideas and what to do than maybe we thought, because this game did take a hot minute for it to come out. So I think that there was challenges there in terms of everything. But I think that the biggest thing that people want to talk about here is the frame rate and kind of what's going on with that, because there's been various different opinions on that, even with the preview. Some people saying that, oh, the frame rate, it's not good, or it's not good at certain parts, or whatever the case is. But I did find some previews out there that kind of talked more about it, very like on the point, right? They just got to it in terms of what it is about the frame rate. So I did want to go over what Pocket Tactics had to say about it, because obviously we want to know, is this game running, you know, really good? If it's not, what's going on here? So here's what they had to say. Quote, I know some of the 60 frames per second boffins want to know if the game is locked there constantly, and as far as I can tell, it is where it counts. When playing with just Bayonetta in combat or exploring levels, the game runs smooth and looks amazing while doing so. Occasionally, when you enter bigger set pieces that have you jumping between the crumbling ruins of entire buildings on the back of an enormous hellbeast, the frame rate drops down to accommodate the action. But in these moments, you don't need the pinpoint accuracy of regular combat. These moments are more roller coaster breaks where the spectacle is front and center and the occasional button press is all you need. Now, here's the thing about that, guys. I figured that was going to be kind of what was going on, because if you watch any of the gameplay trailers that Nintendo's released or any of the other gameplay trailers from Game Informer, they all show pretty smooth gameplay when you're fighting. It looks like it's 60 frames per second, maybe with some dips here and there, but it's going to be hard to tell without hooking some type of digital foundry frame rate counter up or anything like that, or looking at different frame rate spikes or whatever the case is. So most people that are just playing the game normally are probably going to say, hey, this is super smooth. I didn't have any issues with it, especially compared to a lot of the other action games on the Nintendo Switch that might be 30 frames per second. So I don't think it's going to be an issue there. But I think that, like what Pocket Tactics has to say here when it comes to the bigger set pieces where there's things going on, some of the like certain like crazy guided moments where there's all sorts of stuff, then yeah, that's going to slow down the frame rate. But it won't be that bad considering you're not having all the different buttons and action and combat. You're just occasionally pressing a button here and there to do something, almost like a quick time event per se. So I think it won't be too bad in that front. Now we still have to wait and see, and obviously there could be some later parts where the frame rate isn't as good or anything, but based off of everything that I've seen so far from the trailers and also from the gameplay videos that Game Informer put out there with Viola and some of the other things, it looks really smooth, and I think that it's going to play well. I'm guessing it's going to be a Bayonetta 2 Wii U situation where that game targeted 60 frames per second, but there were times where it didn't hit that. But it does seem like it's going to be more stable in those combat areas than some of those bigger areas. It might drop down like we saw with Bayonetta 2. Another thing that I wanted to point out that was really cool about the new trailer of the game was this side little game or part with Jean where it's like a 2D action adventure stealth game where it seems like you have to infiltrate a laboratory to get this scientist Sigurd that can help you out in your adventure, but it plays very much like a 2D Metal Gear Solid or Shadow Complex from back in the day. I'm really loving what they're doing here. I think that Bayonetta, very similar to Nier Automata and games from Platinum titles, they do a good job of incorporating these different gameplay styles that you wouldn't really expect, and this is the same type of thing here. So it was very surprising to see this, and I welcome it because it's really cool, almost kind of like the Star Fox segment in Bayonetta 2 as well, and various other things that Platinum Games has done over the years in their titles. This one surprised me, and it looks really cool. So I'm wondering if this is going to be more than what they just showed off, or there's going to be extra levels that you can play. I'm wondering how deep that part goes, but overall, it looked really good. So we're going to have to wait and see on that, but overall, this is definitely a good thing to see with Bayonetta 3. This is very good. Also, Pocket Tactics had this to say about Bayonetta 3 stacked up with some of the other games. I want to talk much more about Bayonetta 3 as the game itself has a lot to say and so much more to offer, but for anyone wondering if this third entry holds up the legacy of its predecessors, don't worry. Everything you love about Bayonetta is here in perfect condition, and with a few more bells and whistles to take the already over-the-top action even further. Meanwhile, this is easily the best looking the series has ever been, and fans will talk about this story for a long time. The witch is back, and there's a good chance she's never been better. So that is what I want to hear. I want to hear that every game kind of ups the ante. Bayonetta 2 to me was the perfect action game when it comes to what it did, the pacing, everything was just absolutely solid in that game. And to see that Bayonetta 3 is taking things even a step above, and not just a small little step, but actually a sizable step with various different characters here with Viola, also with the gameplay changes, the graphics, the story is much improved. This is something that I've always wanted to see, and I think that it's only possible because Nintendo was able to fund this game that nobody wanted to have, and it did well enough. Between the Wii U and the Nintendo Switch, it sold well enough for them to have confidence to bring it back again. So very happy to see that Bayonetta 3 is looking very good, very happy to see that the story is shaping up, and very happy to see that it seems like the gameplay when it comes to the combat and everything, despite some of the changes, is better than ever, because this is what we need. This is all about Bayonetta when it comes to the end of this month. And there's one more thing that I wanted to talk about, and I think that you guys already kind of know. Some of you guys might think about it a little bit, but how's it going to stack up with Game of the Year, right? I think that this game is going to get a lot of 9s and a lot of 10s. This game's going to get a lot of amazing scores. I think that if the story is as good as maybe some of the previews are saying here, because a lot of people have already beat the game or have already got the review copies or whatever the case is, if the story can hold up, I think that Bayonetta definitely has a chance to be in the Game of the Year contendership with many different sites. Not just the Keighley Awards, because people like to default to the Keighley Awards, but various different sites. Lots of places had Game of the Year awards. A lot of you guys have your own opinions on Game of the Year or what a Game of the Year quality game can be. I feel, obviously, to me, it has to be a game that's highly reviewed. You know, one of those games that people go out there and you see a lot of people say, okay, it's great. I think that Bayonetta 2 was one of those games that was definitely like that, and I think that it was snubbed by a lot of people when it comes to it, but it was in the conversation for Game of the Year and even got Game of the Year from some places. So I think that Bayonetta 3 definitely has that chance with what's came out this year. I mean, some people say it's a weak year. I don't know about that. But for me, I think that it definitely has that opportunity and has that chance. There's really nothing like Bayonetta that's out there when it comes to gameplay. I mean, we have Devil May Cry, we have Astral Chain, we have some games, but Bayonetta has its own unique style, its own unique flavor. And to this point, I still haven't played a game that quite does action combat, the stylish action combat, as good as Bayonetta 2. And Bayonetta 3 looks like it's going to take that even to the next level. So Bayonetta 1/Bayonetta 2, those games are always 90+ rated. I think Bayonetta 2 on the Wii U is like a 91 or something like that, or a 92 rating on there. So this game could easily get above that. And if it does, obviously that is going to be a game of the year contending type of game with that high of a rating, just like Bayonetta 1 and Bayonetta 2 were back when they came out in 2010 and 2014 respectively. So now that we're all the way in 2022, it's been a hot minute, 12 years for 3 games with no spin-offs. I think that this might be the opportunity. This might be the time that Bayonetta really gets into that conversation. Not saying it's going to win it over a game like Elden Ring or God of War Ragnarok. I just want the recognition of people saying, hey, this was one of the best games of the year. Recognition is very important in my opinion as well, because at the end of the day, it's subjective, right? When it comes to what the best one is, there's a lot of different factors that play into that, but I just feel that recognition is good as well. Kind of like how Sakurai said in his series, you know, it's all about kind of propping up the games that did the best for the year, not necessarily games having to win it 100%, because obviously people are going to have different opinions, the voting, all that different type of stuff, but actually just having Bayonetta 3 in the Game of the Year conversation is a big boost, just like Metroid Dread was last year, you know. So I'm excited. I can't wait. I think that this is going to be the best selling Bayonetta game of all time. I think that this game is going to do exactly what people have wanted from Bayonetta when it comes to it. And overall, the story, the gameplay, and everything is so much more improved over what we've seen before. So I'm looking forward to playing the game quite a bit. So what do you guys think when it comes to Bayonetta 3 and the previews so far? Are you guys excited for this one? Let me know in the comment section below. All right, guys, that wraps it up for this video here. Thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate it. Please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, click that notification bell, and we will see you for the next video.